I started drawing this circle a decade ago, carving it thick, carving it deep. My master found me, discovered my plan, and then stopped me. We almost duelled over it, but he was the mightier, so I backed down. A curled lip in the dark was all the rebellion I gave as he pontificated. We never employ the methods of the enemy. We do not meet with them, we do not entreat with them. For ruin and doom are all that come of such foolishness. One does not make pacts with the dark gods, for the price is always higher than that which you are willing to pay. But he was a scared old fool. Despite his power, his craft, his wisdom, he died of the pox last fall. Since then it has been never-ending. One pestilence, one plague after another. The crops blighted, the herds thin, the village slowly dying. No respite, no mercy. So I have travelled a full day away from the village, as I did a decade ago, and begun my ritual. I have studied the winds of magic under my master, and then alone for almost 2 decades. I am able to do this. I know how to contain and constrain. I carved the sigils and circles in the earth, deep, to prevent erasure. Those inside the circle will augment my cry into the winds, will call that which I require, call so loud, so powerful, that not even it will be able to resist. The runes and glyphs outside of the circles, to enhance their efficacy, to make them unbreakable. For it cannot be allowed out. It cannot. I perform the rites. I sacrifice. And then I wait. But I do not wait long. The ground gently shakes, and the branches of the trees above me seem to meet and make a dark canopy to prevent moonlight from striking the circles. In the dark and all alone, I feel more than see the being dragging itself out of the muck. Huge, as I had expected, as I had prepared for it in my circles and wards. It pushes upwards and almost touches the limbs of the trees before bursting into dazzling light for an instant, green of course, then comes down to a lambent glow, still green, but of a more murky hue. I can feel its presence as it tests the lines of my defences, the compulsions put on it by my mystic scripts. Its small head atop a mound of green leather-encased blubber now looks down at me. Its grinning face now put into stark detail by its eyes, the light bursting from them, denoting its power. Inside I quail, but this is the human inside of the wizard. I stand proudly in front of it. My wards protect me. It chortles a deep, gravelly belly laugh, then speaks for the first time. Be swift, wizard, for your frame cannot channel enough of the winds of chaos, of magic, to keep me here for long, little mortal. State your case. I suck in a deep breath and then blurt out the words I had thought to deliver so casually, with conviction. Representative of the great-grandfather, our village labours under your blessings, but without thy mercy. Our people die, our crops sour, our livestock expire. You have blessed us mightily. Now we have seen the light. We are prepared to bend the knee. Ho, 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 ho. And what wilt thou give unto the grandfather for his clemency? We would be his people, we would be under his aegis. We offer to give praise to him every day on the 7th hour, and every night on the 7th hour. We will praise the grandfather in aught else that we do. We will devote our lives to him, if he would but spare us, and give us all of his blessings, not just its rough edges. And you speak for all in your village? I speak for myself first, then those who would see the wisdom of our cause, the effect of the grandfather's full blessings. I would take his power into the village and show his bounty, his magnificence. Then it shall be as you say. I will anoint thee in his name. The demon slowly reached towards the wizard, who took no step back. Half of him was awaiting the touch of this putrescent being. The other half laughed internally that the demon prince did not recognize how trapped and constrained it was, inside the mystic circles and wards as it was. But his eyes widened as the hand passed his last wards without event, and the index finger of the great unclean one gently caressed his brow. Instantly he was struck with a widening pattern of rashes from the point of contact, crashing along at every inch of his skin. It was not possible. As the pain then rushed down him, he screamed, but did not fall to his knees, as the feeling swiftly passed, replaced by a calm and almost joyous temperament that he knew had no genesis within his own soul. The demon chortled once more, and then his body began to fall apart as the last of the wizard's power was drawn from him. As the mammoth being just fell apart, the wizard could make out the back of the circle, that which he could not see before due to the bulk of the great unclean one. There were many multiple breaches across every inch of the circle, every ward, as maggots and flies had swarmed across the lines, having broken them already. It was a good thing that the wizard had come as a supplicant, for if he had not, then he would already be dead. The man then reached for his staff and made to begin the long trek back to his village, to bring the blessings of the grandfather to his people. He would touch them all, as he was touched, anointed by the greater demon. They would be infected. They would be ugly. They would be worshippers of a dark and terrible god. But they would be alive. I am Baldermort, your faithful servant, and I would like to introduce you to one of the most important figures in Warhammer, both fantasy, Age of Sigmar, and the grim darkness of the future. For he is one of the four corrupting powers, one of the great gods of chaos, and he stands astride all of the worlds or realms of Warhammer across the entire range. As this is a guide to Warhammer, I felt that with this iconic character it would be best to cover him in his multiple guises, better to get a fuller picture of him. Also, to save you all from repetitive information when we do move into fantasy, which cannot be far away now. As such, we shall begin with fantasy, the world that was, then move to Warhammer 40k after, for the differences are subtle, but they are there. So, to begin our exploration of the great chaos power known as Nurgle, Lord of Pestilence and Decay, let us lean on existing wisdom. To quote, "The demons of chaos. Far beyond the boundaries of the mortal world lies an impossible domain of magic and dark wonder. This is a nightmarish landscape of desire, hatred, whimsy, and terror. Here no physical laws apply, save for those enforced by the creatures that live within its bounds. This is the realm of chaos, dwelling place of the dark gods and the demons of chaos. None can say how long the realm of chaos has endured, for time has little purchase on this damnable kingdom. It may be that it is as old as history itself, formed even before the stars blazed to life and world itself was created. Yet the realm of chaos and all its dire minions are the hopes and fears of living creatures made manifest. So how could it exist before sentient races rose? In the end, it matters little how the chaos gods came to be. It matters only that they exist, and they are hungry for the souls of mortals. There are 4 chaos gods: Wrathful Khorne, Devious Sinch, Pestilential Nurgle, and Cruel Slaanesh. They are jealous and prideful deities. Each believes himself destined to be the supreme ruler of all existence, and constantly strives to wrestle control of the realms of chaos from his dark brothers. Yet the gods seldom lower themselves to direct confrontation. Such is the business of minions, not omnipotent masters. Thus can each god call upon mighty armies of demons to do battle in his name. Just as the Chaos Gods are beings of magic, so too are their demonic servants. Each demon is a splinter of his divine master, a distorted reflection of mortal yearning, a shard of emotion and dark desire given form and license to destroy. Thus does every demon reflect something of his master's presence and personality. Demons of Khorne are muscled and brutal, driven to slaughter and murder, while those that serve Tzeentch are whimsical and devious, shunning physical combat in favour of the sorcery that Khorne detests so. Nurgle's demons are by far the hardiest of their kind, if somewhat moribund in thought and deed, while Slaaneshi demons are lithe and whip-quick, as delicate in form as they are vicious in temperament. Regardless of form, demons are unnaturally resilient, able to shrug off blows that would tear another creature asunder. Indeed, a demon cannot be truly slain. His physical body can be destroyed, true enough, but this merely banishes the demon's spirit into the swirling wellspring of magical energy, known as the Forge of Souls. Thus vanquished, the demon embarks on the process of creating a new body to inhabit, and dreams of vengeance against those that humbled it so. Though they may share many characteristics, no two demons are entirely alike. All the infinite variety the Chaos commands can be found amongst the warriors of the demonic hosts. Many demons sport extra appendages, ensorcelled weapons or other even odder powers that are the envy, or sometimes the pity, of their peers. Such oddities are bestowed by the demon's patron in celebration of glorious service, or in punishment for ignominious failure. It's not always possible to tell one from the other. The Chaos Gods are normally just as inattentive of the deeds of their demons as they are of those mortals who court their favour. Thusly, their low attention span can sometimes lead to the elevation of thoroughly undeserving minions, or the unjust punishment of their mightiest servants. As demons are twisted parodies of mortal creatures, so too do their armies mirror those of the material planes. The largest of the demon hosts are led by greater demons, monstrous avatars of the dark gods, whose might far eclipses that of any mortal warlord. Their foot soldiers are the lesser demons, unnatural mockeries of mortal warriors that march under tattered and foreboding banners, or guide their snarling war beasts of hell-forged chariots crashing into the enemy ranks. The Chaos Gods constantly war for control of all that is, and the power of each, and his demonic host rises and falls according to his success in this great game. These contests are fought with little quarter and no convention. Any tactic, any artifice, and any underhanded ploy is fair game. Thus are alliances frequent and shifting, and betrayal is commonplace. Yet, however much the Chaos Gods might squabble and vie amongst themselves, there is one cause in which they stand united: the damnation of the mortal realm and all who dwell within it. In pursuit of this objective, all four of the ruinous powers stand shoulder to shoulder, though each ever has one eye upon his brothers, their minions marching forth as one to overwhelm the piteous defenders of the mortal realms. Only when victory is within their grasp do the Dark Gods fall to infighting amongst themselves once again, each seeking to claim rule of the conquered lands. Demons that moments before battled side by side against a common foe set their blades, spells, and fangs against one another without hesitation. Such is the ferocity of the ensuing conflict that the gains of the gods united are swiftly bled away by the struggles of gods divided. A landscape that roiled and writhed with dark sorcery can return almost to normal in a matter of hours, as the battling hordes consume the magical lifeblood to fuel their struggles. Without magic to sustain them, the demons are inevitably sucked back into the realm of chaos. Thus is the mortal world preserved from ultimate destruction, not through valour or strength at arms, but through the same godly greed that provoked the initial onslaught. This is of little comfort to those beings whose lands have been ravaged. Whether through scholarly lore or primitive superstition, they know it is only a matter of time before the dark gods unite once more, and the demons of chaos walk the mortal worlds once again. The Realm of Chaos. The Realm of Chaos is a place of dreams and nightmares, where cause need not follow effect. Within its bounds anything is possible. Here there are no physical laws akin to those that dominate the mortal world. Within its confines hopes and fears become real, and reality is reborn as fevered hallucination. Gravity, shape, space, and reason, All are in flux and utterly mutable to the will of the Chaos Gods. Few mortals are capable of perceiving the realm of chaos in its true splendour, for the living mind recoils from its otherworldly landscapes. Thus, no two visions of the realm of chaos are exactly alike, and are often contradictory. The dark gods of chaos each have their own particular spheres of influence, their own demonic servants, and their own territories. Yet the realm of chaos is not merely the home of the dark gods, it is also their battlefield, the arena for a great game of supremacy. The brothers are constantly at war with one another, vying for power amid the planes. Despite their myriad differences, the Chaos Gods share a common goal: total domination of all that is. But such absolute power cannot be shared, even amongst the gods. So it is that this peculiar world is burdened by constant wars of attrition. Vast demonic armies swarm across crystal plains, venomous forests, bone-choked swampland, and rivers of churning gore, battling to the death to claim and counterclaim territory and the magical lifeblood that goes with it. In the realm of chaos, where magic is the stuff of being, the breadth of a domain is not merely a symbol of power, it is indeed power itself. As the minions of one god seize advantage, captured territory is moulded to the whims of its new master. If corn overruns a portion of Nurgle's festering garden, the diseased foliage swiftly decays down to nothing, leaving only ruddy wasteland. Similarly, should Tzeentch manage to wrestle that same territory from corn, crystalline structures burst forth from the parched firmament. Alliances in this eternal war are complex, but far from unknown. In fact, the dark gods often seek advantage through common cause. Though Khorne is the greatest of the brothers, he is not all-powerful. Tzeentch is his closest rival, but if the circumstances are right, then Nurgle, and sometimes Slaanesh, can rise to be his equal or eclipse him entirely. As if this were not complicated enough, there are deep-seated rivalries amongst the gods that can further influence matters. Khorne despises Slaanesh, whose dark designs are an affront to the blood god's sense of honour and martial pride. Similarly, Tzeentch and Nurgle, respectively the manifestations of hope and despair, need little spurring to come to blows. For each god strives for dominance over the other, and though one may gain ascendancy for a while, no god has yet succeeded in vanquishing another. As one god gains mastery, the others combine against him, and as the allies grow in power they divide, forming new pacts of necessity until another conqueror emerges to vanquish in his turn. Land of the Plague Lord. On the border of Tzeentch's realm lies the domain of Nurgle, the great Lord of Decay, who presides over physical corruption and morbidity. Nurgle can truly be called the father of all pestilence, for his immense frame is home to every disease known to mortals. His giant body is bloated with corruption, and exudes an overpowering stench. His skin is green, leathery, and necrotic, its surface pockmarked with running sores, swelling boils, and numerous infected lesions. Nurgle's inner organs, rank with decay, spill through the ruptured skin to hang like obscene fruit around his girth. From these organs burst tiny demons that chew on the rotting bowels and suck upon the nauseous juices within. Such is the appearance of the Chaos God Nurgle, though mere words can barely do justice to his truly impressive foulness. Although Nurgle is ranked behind Khorne and Tzeentch, the truth is that his power is not necessarily weaker, just less stable than that of the other gods. When Nurgle unleashes his ghastly pestilences, his power rises to a peak. Like a plague, his power grows and often reaches pandemic proportions, temporarily overshadowing that of all of the other Chaos Gods combined. It is for this reason that Nurgle commands a wary respect from all of his brothers. Nurgle's great delight is in the endless cycle of existence, in life and death. At the heart of his mouldering mansion, beneath mildewed and sagging beams, he indulges his passion. The Plague Lord labours for untold hours at an iron cauldron, a receptacle vast enough to contain all the oceans of the world. Nurgle works to create contagion and pestilence, the simplest yet most fecund form of life. Such is the ghastly irony of Nurgle's existence. Everything he does is with the goal of bringing more life into the world. Yet so many of his creations are inimical to other beings that Nurgle's legend is often that of a destroyer, not a creator. With every stir of Nurgle's maggot-ridden ladle, a dozen fresh diseases flourish. From time to time, the corpulent god reaches down with a leathery hand to scoop a portion of the ghastly mixture into his cavernous mouth, so to test the fruits of his labour. Should the putrid soup meet with approval, the god waddles to the corner of his workshop, where he holds Poxfulcrum, a demon blessed with the ability to heal infections, but afflicted with a vulnerability to them all. Opening the corroded cage, Nurgle forces his captive to imbibe the putrid mixture, watching with ill-concealed excitement for the signs and symptoms of his latest creation. Though Poxfulcrum inevitably purges the disease from her body, the efficacy with which she does so allows the Plague Lord to evaluate his creations. If Nurgle is pleased, he returns to his cauldron. As he empties it into the grate below, the teeming liquid falls as rain upon the mortal world. If the concoction does not meet with Nurgle's approval, he prepares his soup anew. As for Poxfulcrum, she whispers to mortals while the Plaguefather is busy at his cauldron, apprising them of cures for the ailments Nurgle unleashes. So has she entered the beliefs of 1,000 cultures upon 1,000 names. Some mortals believe her to be Nurgle's daughter, who cures only so that new diseases can take hold, while others see her as Nurgle's bitterest foe, a benevolent deity of healing and patron of the afflicted. The Garden of Blight. Pestilence is not Nurgle's sole obsession. When not labouring at his cauldron, Nurgle cultivates his garden with a tenderness and pride utterly at odds with his rank and loathsome appearance. As with all worldly things within the realm of chaos, Nurgle's overgrown garden is of a scale large enough to befuddle the mind. Within its bounds are the plants and trees drawn from 1,000,000 worlds and realities. Each strain of flora flourishes in its peculiar environment, though not all are immediately recognizable. Like any gardener, Nurgle cannot resist the recombining of his beloved strains. Almost everything in the Plaguefather's garden is some strange hybrid of vegetable, fungoid, and demonic life. Perhaps as a result of this, the garden is alive with a kind of ghastly intelligence. It is not sentient as such, but has enough carnivorous instinct to attack intruders, its plague-smothered vines bestowing all manner of deathly poxes on those who foolishly come within reach. As Nurgle's power grows, so too does the splendour of his garden. At the zenith of the Plague Lord's power, the undergrowth becomes vital enough to burst over its boundaries and cast murky tendrils into Tzeentch's crystal labyrinth and the lands beyond. Left unchecked, the decaying presence of Nurgle's plants crack and weather the arcane geodes from which the labyrinth is composed. Such an assault, however unwitting, inevitably provokes Tzeentch's minions to instinctively attack the incursive foliage, using sorcerer's fire to scour root, stem, and branch from the shimmering labyrinth. This in turn rouses the wrath of Father Nurgle. Before long, the demonic servants of the great sorcerer and the Plague Lord are at war once again. Such battles can last for seconds or centuries, for they only cease when Nurgle's power, and thus the unchecked growth of his garden, recedes again. End quote. It cannot be said if fantasy or Age of Sigmar are actually firmly linked to the grim darkness of the future, but it is highly likely. There have been hints and connecting features, but they are not the same. Now the Chaos Gods are slightly different in the world that was, fantasy, and the new realms, which is Age of Sigmar, to that of the grim darkness of the 41st millennium. For the Chaos powers are a separate realm, as they are in 40k, but in a different way. Yes, they are parodies of powers that could or should have been productive and positive, but in fantasy they have always existed. They are woven into the very fabric of reality. Yet as with the grim darkness setting, the truth is that the mortal realms for Age of Sigmar or fantasy before it are undeniably of less importance than the great game waged in the realms of chaos or in the warp. Rarely does anything happen that will hold the interest of the grandfather in comparison to the war against his equals, his brother gods of chaos. If he should ever invest so much attention in the real worlds that it distracts him from the warp, the great game, then he is in constant danger of being overrun by Khorne, Tzeentch, or even young Slaanesh. So as important as his effects, his gifts are here in the real world. No matter how much pain, misery and death he may unleash, it is always best to know what he could do if he concentrated his activity, if he bent his entire will to the mortal realms again. For the only time that this has ever happened before, where he and his brothers actually called a truce long enough to act in concert, an entire realm was capsized easily into Chaos's grasp, and then destroyed. The world that was. So let us hope that the grandfather and his brothers are always at each other's throats. In the age of Sigmar, let us hope that they never ever make common cause again. And now we move to the Warhammer 40k setting. And let us start with another story. We track their armies back to their lair. Not very difficult, it would seem. We are Astartes of the sons of Corvus Corax, so it was to be expected. Our armour all in black and muffled, we advanced through the undergrowth towards the centre of the ruckus, for there seemed to be some form of celebration in the offing. As we prowled forward, all took in the spectacle before us. Like some twisted mockery of our own practices, the forces of chaos were having what can only be described as a victory ceremony. Ha! We had given more than we had gotten, so the display of martial endeavour seemed so full of itself. We had butchered thousands of the scum, yet here they were celebrating their meagre spoils. We moved up and watched as a huge mass of leather and blubber, a mountain of green pus and intestines, held court. It would await a supplicant coming forward, showing off a bolt gun here, guard dog tags there. Each time the mass, the great unclean one, would nod its approval, always after a beaming look of surprise and perhaps even a mild nudge or wink toward the being, demon or mortal, that had brought forward its token of victory, its spoils. Strangest was when a moving carpet of tiny green copies of the great unclean one, Nurglings I think they are called, processed to its feet, holding multiple marine helmets on their upheld hands. The guffaw that came from the demon was positively girlish. So happy was it that multiple of these tiny replicas of it were drawn into the arms of the great unclean one, and almost daintily kissed and returned to the mass. It was repugnant, our comrades' armour being used as totems like this. So we prepared to strike. Our first salvo saw multiple missiles streaking through the undergrowth of the hulk. Our bolters slammed into it as they hit. Huge explosions crackled across its carcass, blowing sizable chunks out of it, covering the congregation and the forest around it. A wailing went up almost immediately, as the mass Nurgle worshippers and Neverborn lamented the loss of the avatar of their god. Or so I thought. But as the smoke cleared, the pus and blood and skin landed around us like rain. We all beheld a measure of our attack. Nothing. The huge blob merely laughed, and all the while little Nurglings, little things, leapt into it and onto it, repairing the wounds our weapons had torn from it. Nor were the masses lamenting as I had thought. The dirge quickly rose in pitch and intensity as all around us, all before us, now some behind, let rip a scream from their lungs. As the great unclean one laughed, it rose its hands to the heavens in some form of calling. With that the decaying trees around us, the ones we hung from to gain the best fire aperture, they all burst into life. Branches twisted and grabbed at my brethren, lifting them into the skies and twisting them until all that could be heard were a crescendo of sharp cracks and dull implosions. Those of us who struggled free of the now animated trees, hacking with our combat knives, were not spared. The carpets of these little things came around us from behind, pulling men down and wrestling their helmets from them, crunching on their faces and their skulls thereafter. Amongst the throngs were larger beasts, drones, and one-eyed monsters. All fell on us. As I was held down by a mass of these horrible little Nurglings, the last thing I experienced was the leering face of a one-eyed monster, as its maw opened and perfect Gothic swept out of it. "Welcome to our banquet, mortal. You shall be our guest of honor." The nature of chaos in the grim darkness of the future I have outlined, as I see it, in a previous entry, so please do peruse that first if you have not already done so. It is called The Warp and Demons. And so, we can see the similarities in Fantasy and 40k, for they are practically the same figure, but there are differences. In Warhammer 40k, the figure of Pox Fulcrum is in fact the Eldar goddess Isha. She whose tears form the physically attuned gems that occur in the Eye of Terror, gemstones that the Eldar use to capture their souls before they depart into the stream of souls, which is stalked by She Who Thirsts. For She Who Thirsts for their souls above all others. As Khorne fought Slaanesh for the soul of Cain, Nurgle fought for the soul, the being called Isha. And after a rumble with the other elder gods and then Khorne, Slaanesh was simply not able to resist him. Thus did Nurgle take the goddess for his own, and thus does he use Isha, as Pox Fulcrum is used in fantasy. And strangely, I feel that there is a chicken and egg discussion to be had about the Grandfather and the other gods' existence, re where they originated. I feel the present evidence points to the grim darkness being the universe where it all began. Why, I hear you ask, O gentle listeners? Well, it is simplicity itself. In the grim darkness we see their genesis. For Nurgle was not the first god, that was Khorne, but his genesis is described. He finally coalesced into sentience in the Dark Ages. But as soon as he was formed, he was not changed from being warp stuff. So in that realm, he has always existed. When he was born, he immediately transcended from time or causality. Hence do I believe that the dark gods of chaos have their beginnings in the far future world, and from the point of their birth they then existed in all realms to which their warp is connected. It is easy to see them as fundamental forces of the universe. But Nurgle, like the other chaos gods, is not a naturally occurring force of nature. He is not decay or plague or suffering or death. He is a chaos god of the warp. Thus, he is, when all is stripped away, merely the reflection of sentient beings' fear of and reaction to contagion and plague and the corruption of the flesh. Like all the chaos gods, Nurgle seems to be the representation or personification of a fundamental force, change, death, lust or decay. In this guise he would appear to be entropy, but he is not. He is a parody of that force seen through the warp lens of the psyche of the beings who inhabit a twisted and broken galaxy, the grim darkness of Warhammer 40k. But let us go off script. Before, I stated that I considered the tainting of the warp to be the fault of the first great battle, the war in heaven. That is where the seeds were sown, in my opinion, so thus do I follow up and expound on my assertion. If the Old Ones had not fought the Necrontyr, had not defeated them, had not humbled them, they would not have then made contact with, and then agreed to serve, the Catan. It is well attested that the Nightbringer, as a Gorod, affected the galaxy on a fundamental level, giving many sentient beings a fear of death, an unnatural fear of endings, tainting it. But I suspect that the other Catan, who unleashed such terrible forces as those wielded by Azagorod, may also have affected the psyche of the galaxy and its thinking beings, change being attributed to the trickster, etc., causing an unreasonable strain in sentient beings, for change is now to be feared as well, whereas previously, perhaps it was not. But it is the warping of the immutables like death and change, making them things of stress and potentially to be feared, and fear is the key. For fear warps the kind act into a slight, the compassionate deed into an aggressive one. Fear is the misshapen prism that warps all, making it vile. Thus the fears ingrained into sentient beings by the Catan opened the gates to the tainting of the immaterium, the warp. Thus Nurgle is not disease. He is our fear of disease and its ramifications. He is not pestilence. He is our fear of it. He is just a parody of what he should have potentially have been. The sad thing is that the forces of chaos appear to have been intended as forces of good. It is very likely that they would have arose anyway. Khorne, the Eros urge, the drive for life transformed into the Thanatos, the death urge. Slaanesh, love, pleasure and attraction, changed to lust and hedonism. Tzeentch, progress, prescience and planning, twisted into plotting and scheming. Thus would Grandfather Nurgle be nature, abundance and growth. Fecundity. Instead, fear of sentient beings has caused this great force to become pestilence and plague. Yet of all of the great dark powers, the gods, the Grandfather is aptly named. For he truly cares for his creations, his demons, his champions, his followers, and the whole galaxy. This alone, the twisting of the warp could not yet take away from him, his core of caring. In this, Nurgle is alone in being true to his originally intended identity, for he cares for all. Alas, it is how he expresses that love that makes him truly one of the most terrifying things in the grim darkness of the future. The warbands of chaos are littered with would-be champions of Nurgle that are descended into spawn by the Grandfather's blessings, for his bounty knows no bounds. I have been Baldermort, your faithful servant. I hope you've enjoyed this brief introduction to the Chaos God Nurgle. If so, then please consider liking and subscribing. If you do, then please do also consider hitting the notification button, as I would not want you to miss out. Now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.